The next morning, the workers found the site abandoned, the developer having left without a word. The project was quietly cancelled and the land was left untouched. The locals whispered that the spirit of the murdered woman had returned, still bound to the land where she had met a tragic end. And so, the land remained cursed, a place where no one dared to build, and the story of the haunted house lived on, a cautionary tale for all who heard it. The haunting of the cursed house had spread far beyond the village of Orona. The tale of the restless ghost who killed anyone who dared to rent the house had become local legend. But no one knew the full story except for a man named Ade, the developer who had bought the land and attempted to build on it. After abandoning the construction site in fear, Ade thought he could simply walk away from the horrors he had witnessed. But the spirit of the murdered woman, whose life had been taken on that land under the blood-red moon, was not done with him. She had plans, and they did not include letting Ade live in peace. Months passed, and Ade's life began to unravel. At first, it was small things, shadows in the corners of his vision, cold drafts that followed him from room to room. He told himself it was his imagination, but deep down, he knew the truth. The spirit had followed him. One night, as Ade sat in his lavish home, trying to distract himself from the fear gnawing at his mind, he heard a soft whisper. It was so faint that he thought he had imagined it. But when it came again, clearer this time, his blood ran cold. "Justice must be served." The voice was that of a woman, cold and full of sorrow. Ade leaped to his feet, searching the room with wide eyes, but there was no one there. The whisper continued, growing louder until it became a wail that filled the entire house. Ade covered his ears and screamed, but the wailing only grew more intense. Objects began to rattle and fall from shelves. The lights flickered, then went out, plunging the room into darkness. Terrified, Ade fled from his home, running out into the night. But no matter where he went, the voice followed him, the wailing echoing in his ears. He knew he couldn't escape it. He needed help. Desperate, Ade sought out the help of a powerful spiritualist named Baba Ibeji, known for his ability to communicate with the dead. Baba Ibeji lived in a small, secluded hut on the outskirts of another village. It was said that he could see into the spirit world and had helped many people rid themselves of curses and malevolent spirits. Ade arrived at Baba Ibeji's hut, pale and trembling. The spiritualist, an old man with piercing eyes and a calm demeanor, listened to Ade's tale without interruption. When Ade finished, Baba Ibeji nodded slowly. "The spirit is bound to the land where she was unjustly killed," Baba Ibeji said in a grave tone. "She seeks justice for her death, but more than that, she seeks the fulfillment of the purpose for which she died. The money stolen from her was meant for her mother's surgery, a task she never completed. That is why she remains in torment." Ade's heart sank. "What must I do to appease her?" he asked, his voice trembling. "You must return the money," Baba Ibeji said. "You must find the descendants of the thieves who killed her and ensure that they pay for their ancestors' sins. Only then can her spirit rest." Ade felt a chill run down his spine. The task seemed impossible, but he knew he had no choice. The spirit had already shown him what she was capable of, and if he didn't do as Baba Ibeji said, he would be next. Determined to end the curse, Ade began his search for the descendants of the thieves. It was a daunting task, as the event had taken place decades ago, and most of the village's history had been forgotten or deliberately buried. But Ade was relentless, driven by fear and desperation. As he delved into the village past, he uncovered a web of lies and deceit. The thieves who had killed the young woman were once prominent members of the village, known for their wealth and influence. They had used their power to cover up the crime, and over the years, their descendants had continued to live in prosperity, unaware of the blood on their hands. But the ghost knew, and now So did Ade. His investigation led him to a prominent family in the village, the Agbalas. They were respected by all, known for their charity and piety, but their wealth had come from the blood money stolen from the murdered woman. Ade knew what he had to do, but the thought of confronting them filled him with dread. He sought Baba Ibeji's advice once more. The spiritualist warned him that the spirit's wrath would be uncontrollable if justice was not served swiftly. The ghost was growing stronger, and her anger was now directed at the entire bloodline of her killers. Ade devised a plan to confront the Agbalas. He gathered evidence of their ancestors' crimes, old records and testimonies from elders who still remembered the dark night under the red moon. On the night of the confrontation, as the moon began to rise, Ade made his way to the Agbala estate. The air was thick with tension, and a strange silence hung over the village. It was as if the very ground was holding its breath, waiting for what was to come. Ade confronted the head of the Agbala family, a man named Chief Agbala. In front of his entire household, he presented the evidence recounting the tale of the murdered woman and the curse that had plagued the land ever since. At first, Chief Agbala laughed off the accusations, but as Ade spoke, a change came over him. His face grew pale and his laughter died in his throat. He could see the truth in Ade's words, and the guilt of his ancestors weighed heavily on him. Suddenly, the room grew cold and the lights flickered. A wail filled the air, the same wail that had haunted Ade for months. The spirit had arrived. Chief Agbala fell to his knees, begging for mercy, but the ghost was relentless. She began to possess the members of the household one by one, forcing them to relive the night of her murder. The pain and fear she had felt in her final moment were now theirs. As the ghost moved through the family, Baba Ibeji stepped forward. Chanting powerful incantations, he called upon the spirits of the ancestors, begging them to intervene and guide the ghosts to peace. But the ghost's anger was too great and she resisted. Realizing that the spirits would not rest until justice was fully served, Ade and Baba Ibeji decided to perform the final rite. They led the Agbalas to the very spot where the woman had been killed, now overgrown with weeds and forgotten by time. There they built a small altar, placing the money and belongings of the murdered woman upon it. Baba Ibeji began the ritual, calling upon the spirit to accept the offering and leave the living in peace. The air grew thick with tension as the spirit appeared before them. Her form, a swelling mass of rage and sorrow, she hovered above the altar, her eyes burning with anger. But as Baba Ibeji's incantation filled the night air, something began to change. The spirit hesitated, her anger slowly giving way to sorrow. She looked upon the money meant for her mother's surgery, and a tear fell from her ghostly eye. The moon, still red, began to pale, turning a soft white. With a final wail, the spirit descended upon the altar, and the item burst into flames. The fire burned brightly for a moment, then died out, leaving only ashes behind. The spirit was gone. Ade, Baba Ibeji, and the Agbalas stood in silence, the weight of what had just happened heavy on their shoulders. The curse had been lifted, but the cost had been great. In the days that followed, the village of Orona was quiet. The Agbala family, once proud and powerful, became reclusive, their wealth now tainted by the blood of the past. Ade, too, was changed. He had faced the wrath of the spirit and survived, but the experience had left him scarred. The land where the house had stood remained untouched. No one dared to build on it again, and it was left to nature, a reminder of the horrors that had once taken place there. But the village knew the truth. The spirit had been wronged, and justice, though delayed, had finally been served. The tale of the developer's curse became another chapter in the legend of the haunted land, a story passed down through generations as a warning to all who might forget the sins of the past. And yet, there were whispers that the spirit still lingered, watching over the land, ensuring that no more innocent blood would be spilled. The curse was lifted, but the memory of the red moon and the wailing ghosts would never fade. So guys, this is how I'm going to be ending this story. If you enjoyed this story and you like it, comment in the comment section, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.